Welcome to For the Common Good with Juanita, a show where we inform, inspire, and empower our communities, businesses, and people just like you. I'm excited about the show today. We are talking to a community leader, a pastor, a community activist, and the host of a radio show. Reverend Dr. Wayne Weathers has a Master's of Divinity from Duke University and a doctorate in ministry from Lutheran. He's a pastor, organizer of Vision of Hope Baptist Church in Jenkintown, Pennsylvania, and has been involved in a number of initiatives, including Deputy Coalition Director of Faith Engagement from Pennsylvania for the Biden-Harris campaign. He's also served as the second Vice President and Political Action Chair of Black Clergy of Pennsylvania and vicinity. He's also served as an adjunct professor. He's married to Reverend Benita Weathers, and they are blessed with 3 children, Jasmine, James, and Kayla. Okay, great. Help me welcome Reverend Dr. Wayne Weathers to the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you on the show, and love talking about your radio initiative that you have. I'm so excited about that.
Thank you.
But you're also an entrepreneur. You founded an organization called BFG.
Yes.
I want to hear a little bit more about that. I know that with this business that you have and the radio show called Conversation Unplugged,
yes,
you stay pretty busy.
Very.
And pastoring a church.
Yes. Yeah, BFG is BFG Consulting LLC. The acronym means Bound for Greatness. The history behind that, our son, at the time when he was in high school, he's actually a senior at Virginia State University right now,
awesome.
My alma mater. He was struggling academically in school, and to help build his self-esteem his junior year, I came up with this term because of some medical challenges that he faced. He was born premature, so he was diagnosed as developmentally delayed. We never shared that with him because we didn't want him to use that as a handicap. But he was facing some academic challenges where he stopped believing in himself. So we came up with this acronym to help build the self-esteem. It said Bound for Greatness. So I said, when you go into the classroom, bound for greatness. When you go on the athletic field, football field, bound for greatness. And then later just took that whole concept and says, well, if I could use that for my son, I could go out and help others. So it's a consulting business. I go out and help consult nonprofit organizations, looking to consult corporations and things of that nature. I'm also training to be a life coach. And so, in that concept, Bound for Greatness, utilize it as a life coach. And also, I sponsor our radio show under the LLC BFG.
Oh, now let's talk about the radio show. Your radio show is very unique.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
And the name of the radio show is called Conversation Unplugged, and the whole goal of the radio show is to discuss local, national, international issues that is affecting the community and throughout the world. The reason why it's called Conversation Unplugged is what we do is we unplug from what the mainstream media is illustrating to the public. Now, that term has been utilized to villainize the media. And when I say mainstream, I'm saying CNN, MSNBC, Fox, local news, etc. And then with my training as a pastor and then as a musician also, you listen to the unheard. Like one thing I was taught in college by a college classmate, the beauty of music is not listening to the 2/4 beat or the 1/3 beat, but to listen to the hand clap in the background that you normally don't hear. Listen to the triangle or the raindrops. So that's what conversation is about. Let's listen to what is not really spoken of instead of just following the headlines and then follow the talking point of what everybody is saying.
Oh, I love that concept. Many times there are so many people in our society that really don't have a voice and they don't have a platform. And your radio show is giving them that type of platform.
Yes, we talk about a variety of issues. Of course, the political nature and the political season has gave us enough topics to talk about.
You can say that again.
But we also talk about various things. Like I'm in a process now of trying to do a tribute to Mary Wilson, who just passed away. Yes, a legendary Supreme. At times I feel hasn't gotten the just due. And so, we talk about those particular issues. We just lost a hip hop legend, Prince Marky D from the Fat Boys. We want to talk about that as well. And then my wife and I, we did a section on depression. How does a spouse deal with another spouse who has depression? Because at times, I suffer with depression. So we did a joint radio show together. So those are some of the topics that we discuss.
Oh, that's fascinating. So you have a variety of guests on the show talking about these different topics.
Yes.
That is really, really exciting. How did you start this radio show? I mean, was it something that just came about? Did you always think you wanted to do a radio show, or one day you just decided that you were just going to go with it? What's inspired you?
It started as a process. So my parents, especially, my mom and dad, so you always had a mouth. And so my mouth was always either getting me in trouble. But I believe the process started in Baltimore, Maryland, when I lived there after graduating from college. God bless his soul. My father-in-law, he turned me on to this talk show. Actually, Kathy Hughes Network, to be exact. Kathy Hughes, WOL.
From the Washington, D.C. area?
Yes. And so when he turned me on to WOL and listening to just the subjects and the topics, and I found myself calling in, had the opportunity to speak with Dick Gregory just as a call-in, and Kathy Hughes, because they both hosted the show together. That was motivational. Then when we moved to North Carolina, Tom Pope had a radio show as well. And I think it was on Shaw University's radio station, so I would listen to that religiously. And then one day I just said, if, WOL could do it, and if Tom Pope could do it, and I found myself calling in to Tom Pope's show a lot, that was the catalyst to say, you know what, I could do this too. So that was the starting point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And, and I certainly think there's a void there for a lot of voices that need to be heard, and your radio show obviously is filling that void. Now, what does it come on every day?
It comes on every Thursday. We are on every Thursday, WWDB 860 AM in Philadelphia. That's at 1 o'clock. From 5 to 6, we're on www.spiritualconnectradio.com, and we've just expanded the show in Atlanta, Georgia. So we broadcast simultaneously at 1 p.m. We broadcast on 1100 a.m. The Real WWWE in Atlanta, Georgia.
Awesome. Wow. We're going to be right back. We've been talking to Reverend Dr. Wayne Weathers, and you don't want to miss this. We'll be right back. Welcome back to For the Common Good with Juanita. Today, we're talking to Reverend Dr. Wayne Weathers. And we've been talking about a number of different things, from his radio show to pastoring church. But I wanted to focus in, Reverend Weathers, if you would, on this community activism that you've done, especially as the Deputy Coalition Director of Faith Engagement in Pennsylvania for the Biden-Harris campaign.
Yes.
Tell me, what was that like? I mean, what were you doing?
It was a great experience. My chief responsibility was to organize African American churches throughout the whole entire state in order to turn out voters for the upcoming election.
Throughout the state of Pennsylvania?
Yes, and Pennsylvania is broken into like 3-4 areas: the southeast, central, the west, as well as southwest. So had to cover that whole corridor virtually. Couldn't hardly travel out because of the coronavirus and things of that nature. My goal was not just to work with large churches, but my goal was to work
Small
with
churches.
exactly because
Great.
small churches are normally left from the table. So I was very adamant that the small churches needed to have a voice at the table just as much as the larger churches. And then to top it off, the beauty of it was I was not responsible, bad choice word, just say a key integral part in getting Biden to come meet with African American pastors in Philadelphia before the election. So they had what was called a car rally. And so where they came to Sharon Baptist Church, where the pastor is Bishop Keith Reed in Philadelphia. So to be there, to have to, submit churches for the possible churches for them to be able to host the event, just to see the logistics that goes on in the selection process. And so that was a great experience.
Were you able to get many of the smaller churches? Because I can imagine, especially in Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania is such a huge, diverse state.
Yes.
In many of the smaller rural areas, were people willing to participate?
Yes, it's all about relationship building.
There you
So
go.
if I didn't have the relationship, you tap into people who have the pre-existing relationship.
Exactly.
So that really helped open up doors to reach, African American pastors in rural areas in Pennsylvania, so that they could have a voice at the table.
What other types of things? Because obviously activism is something that you are very passionate about.
Yes.
And that was an example of your activism in the community. You were involved, I can imagine, in the community in a lot of different areas.
Yes, recently there's a lot that I've been involved with. The history of the track for me involved in activism, it started in seminary when I was an intern with the North Carolina Council of Churches, and my first activism experience actually was in Wilson, North Carolina. This was at the time when President Bill Clinton passed the Welfare Reform Act, and Governor Hunt at the time, a former Governor Hunt, passed the Welfare Reform Act. So the difference is that the federal government said you have 5 years to be removed from welfare. Former Governor Hunt's bill said you had 3 years. And so we had to go galvanize the community. And at the time, I was able to go to Raleigh, North Carolina, and watch rallies take place with my supervisor, Barber Zelter. Barbara Zelter, Micheline Mawson, as well as Kathy Putnam, all three, two Caucasian women, one African American woman. They really had me tune into watching what was going on. How are events being organized? What are the pros? What are the cons? What was the strengths? What was the weaknesses? And then I came in contact with people yesterday who have blown up nationally today. One person is, although they probably wouldn't remember me, Reverend William Barber.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
He did the Moral Mondays, I
He did the Moral
believe.
Mondays.
Absolutely.
So back in 1997 or 98 to be exact, he was at the state capitol but there was a rally with a group called Fair Share. And he was one of the first ones that was at the cuffs of pushing universal health care. And so just to be at that event and watch all the intricacies take place. And then Jim Wallace, who has the Sojourner magazine and things of that nature, he was there at the Capitol as well in Raleigh. So that was the first, taste of organizing.
Right.
And then to fast forward, recently a group of pastors and myself, we was working with community organizations to stop Temple University from building a stadium in a predominantly African American community in North Philly that was gentrified. A lot of the leaders, including pastoral leaders and clergy, were saying you're wasting your time. They're going to do what they've already decided to do. They were very discouraging. You just need to see what you can get from Temple and just continue to move on. You're just wasting your time. And to make a long story short, and it wasn't just the pastors alone. We have to give kudos to the community organization, No Stadium, No Deal. They were very, very organized. It was clergy and community working together. As of yet, Temple has not built the stadium, and they renewed their lease with the Eagles organization so that they can continue to have their football games at the Lincoln Financial Field.
Wow. That's amazing. But I think, like you said, it's about relationships and developing those relationships.
Yes.
And when we can come together and organize, it makes all the difference in the world.
It definitely does.
And that's an example of that.
Yes.
Wow. So basically, if you could do anything that you wanted to do in terms of activism, what would be your vision for that moving forward? Is there something else that you'd like to do or that you want to focus on, you feel, or just continue on the track that you're going with your activism?
There's many areas without giving up the pastoring. Social justice is definitely one. And then what we're getting ready to do now after working for the Biden campaign, we built some great coalitions.
You don't want to lose that.
But what happens is when a campaign is over, everybody moves on. And then 4 years later, you have to rebuild again. So I'm working with the pastors in which we built relationships and coalitions. And we're getting ready to form a 501c4 so that we can continue the coalition so that people understand the strength and the power of African American clergy, that at times politicians across parties, whether you're Democrat, Republican, or independent, they take us for granted. And so we want to show that, we are not just as important in the presidential election, but we're important in the local election. We're important for a state election. We're not just important for, again, a presidential election, but we're also important when judges have to be elected across the
Those
perspective.
local elections
Exactly.
especially.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're currently working on right now. And then the social justice issues that's going on, in Philadelphia, across the state, throughout the country, the insurrection at the White House, the craziness that's happening in cities, whether it's rural or urban. There just has to be a voice at this particular point. And it's not that my voice is the only voice, but my passion is just, liberation theology. God is on the side of the oppressed. So that's my heart.
Bring light to really dark places.
Yes.
There you go. All right. This is really awesome. We're going to talk more to Reverend Dr. Wayne Weathers. This is really exciting. We're talking about community activism, his pastoring a church, and basically things that we can do using our voice and building the platform to do that. We're going to take a break now. We'll be right back. Don't you go anywhere. Welcome back to For the Common Good with Juanita. And we've been talking to Reverend Dr. Wayne Weathers. And joining him on our segment here is his beautiful wife, Reverend Benita Weathers. Please help me welcome her to the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
And thank you so much for joining us. And we've been talking, Reverend Weathers, about the inspiration behind the show, the radio show, and also your activism in the community, which I think is wonderful. What would you want your listeners to take away from the show? So those who are listening to the show, what is it that you really want them to get?
What we really want them to get is just a deeper insight into the issues that is affecting our country, and to be challenged to go out and make change, or to go out and think differently as well. To examine what is being said, who is saying it, why they are saying it, and then to be able to formulate your own thought process.
I love that.
Yeah.
Tweet.
Your own thought process instead of
independent thinkers. Absolutely.
Yeah, instead of being influenced or walking with talking points from various networks and just running with it without knowing the facts. That's what Conversation Unplugged is about. And that's why we call it Unplugged. We're unplugging to plug you back in.
Wow, I love that. But how you're able to reach people without the voice necessarily, because you want those people talking on your show. Is it through your networking and through the relationships you've developed that you're able to find those people for the show?
I think it's a combination of all. Definitely relationships. Someone knowing someone. It does come with hurdles. When folks hear that you're on an internet radio station, and sometimes you try to get politicians to come on, when they don't hear that you're on that is a regular radio station, let me take that back, a radio station which they're familiarized with,
exactly.
They tend to not take you serious. And so that was another reason why we took it from internet to the AM radio station, so we can get greater exposure, so that we can be able to interview various individuals seriously. It's not a walk in the park. So, we're going to make you feel comfortable, but we're also going to raise questions that's going to challenge what's going on in society, challenge, political decisions or policies decisions that you made. Why did you do it when you did it? But it's not a got you moment, but it's basically to be very straightforward to say, okay, let's unplug what you're doing so we can plug people into why you did it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Now, you talk about a support system, and I can imagine your wife is part of your support system that allows you to be able to do this and engage like you have. Can you talk a little bit about your support system, maybe at your church, or what you have in place for that?
My wife is my best friend. And, that's how it was when we, met and everything.
I paid him to say that.
There you go.
Yeah, she's my best friend. And she's been a great encourager.
Yeah.
And she even has a podcast as well.
Oh, awesome.
And so, as I'm on the radio station and everything, she's doing the podcast, and she won't let me get into a mindset of I can't. The one thing that she's big on that her mother taught her is don't tell yourself no. Let them tell you no. And I was big at telling myself no before. Actually, we were just talking this morning. There was some things I wanted to pursue, and that fear was kicking in. Well, I'm doing this, I'm doing that.
Fear.
So I don't want to step forward, but she says, but don't let fear stop you. So, and not only my wife, I have to say our children also. When it came,
So are your children involved at any level with the radio show?
Yes. The intro of the song was written, produced, and sang by my oldest, Jasmine Nicole
Whoa,
Weathers. Yes.
Really?
My son is an avid supporter of topics and things of that nature, as well as my youngest. She specializes in marketing. She's an undergrad student at Clark, Atlanta. My oldest and my youngest went to my wife's alma mater. My son went to my alma mater. And so she's good at marketing, so she's constantly giving me great ideas about how to market. And then she was one of the first children that personally invested money into the radio show to make sure I got on the air.
Now, how old are your kids?
Our kids now are 20, 23, and 25.
So they help you capture that market too,
Yes.
because there's not a lot of young people that age that are necessarily listening to radio. I mean, they're doing all kinds of things, but so I guess that's helpful to get their insight.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Wow.
So, but no, it's been great. Something you want to say?
You're doing a great job. I'm enjoying sitting here listening to you.
We're good.
So tell me about your podcast, Reverend Benita.
Oh, so my podcast is called Living the Word Beyond Sunday Morning. And I have a book by the same name. It's a Bible study guide. But the podcast really is a way for people to discover how to live out their faith beyond Sunday morning, literally. So I have topics. Right now, I'm talking with people who have disabilities, called Living the Word Through Physical Challenges. I talked with people before in the second season about living the word through social action and social justice. And I like to try to encourage people to get involved, roll up their sleeves some kind of way, make their voices known. That's the point of the podcast.
Right.
If I could also add about her podcast, one important part she left out. She was blessed to interview Grammy and Stellar Award, right? Kurt Whalum. Yeah, she was able to interview Kurt Whalum for her podcast, which was definitely awesome.
Great teamwork you have. I just love this energy. See, now we definitely need to have her on the show, right? So this is wonderful. Thank you so much for all you're doing. Is there any final words you'd like to leave for our viewers?
I would say, whatever you're passionate about, positively pursue it. Don't let fear interfere with your faith, and use negativity as the energy to create positive outcomes. And that's what I would leave, those who are watching the show with. I've taken negative energy and used it to create positive outcome. I've learned how to use faith to overcome fear. And use no as my greatest motivator to seek a yes, because if you don't get no's, and you would never know how to pursue a yes.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
And that is a great note to end on. Reverend Wayne and Reverend Benita, thank you so much.
Thank you
for all you're doing, and just to continue to keep the faith and continue to be passionate about what you're doing, and you're going to make a difference.
Thank
certainly.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being on the show. And thank you for tuning in to For the Common Good with Juanita.